welcome everybody. Excuse me. This is part 3 of a series of live streams covering Linux and Unix commands. I am intending this to be the final one in this series, and next week we'll transition over to doing a little bit of light shell scripting. So we're really continuing to build, but since it's getting into scripting, I wanted to kind of make a differentiation between the two series and probably go 3 or 4 episodes excuse me, on the scripting side of things. Hello, TVJ, welcome. And just to head off any question, yes, I'm planning to be done by 8:30 tonight. And like I said before in the stream yesterday, give people at least 30 minutes to do whatever they need to do between the end of my stream and the start of yours. So I got you covered. All right. So, new StreamYard feature that I haven't used before. So, last week we left off after going through a good chunk, or finishing up a good chunk of things. My intention tonight is to start. Where's my highlighted section? We're going to start on page 142 and run through a couple of examples here. And then we will review anything people want to review, and then push through the last of the material. I've got a few bonus things that I found that I want to cover that will hopefully be useful for somebody. Yeah, we'll wrap things up, and we'll have hopefully a little bit of time for Q&A at the end and go from there. So, okay, no worries if you have to step out for a few. Do what you need to do. I appreciate you stopping in. I'm going to forge on. So, let's switch over to the Ubuntu box. All right. And I will come back up to a few things here. So one of the things we covered last week was echo path. Path being an environment variable, and it's going to tell you what's currently in your path, which is searchable if you go to execute a program. Those directories in your path will be searched for the name of the executable, and if it doesn't find it, it will spit you back an error. We looked at the which command. So if we say which nano, it's going to tell us where nano is located. We talked about starting on page 97. Oh, I suppose one thing I better do before I go further is put this in the chat once again, just for the sake of argument. We went on page 97, they talk about getting help. We talked about man. We talked about the info command. TLDR, which is a command that can be added, which will also get you help. And then we took a look at cheat.sh slash, ls, where this spits you back just mainly examples. It doesn't give you the background of the command. It just gives you examples, real world examples. A lot of people find that useful. Other commands, just real quick, that we covered last week: ls, cat, cut, cd, cp, mv, mkdir, touch, wc, pass wd, rm, rmdir, more, less, where is, head, tail, sort, tr, chmod, grep, and tree. So those should be sort of relatively familiar to people. Section 2.3 covered directories and listing files. So we talked about the tree command. Let's see what we got here. So if I did tree level 1 music, it's going to show I don't have anything in my music folder right now. How about videos? Okay. Do it that way then. So that will give you one level deep of my home folder. We could do 2 levels deep, and as you can see, it gives that next level of files and directories below our initial level. Let's see. We talked a little bit about aliases as well. One of the aliases, and I've rebooted the machine and I didn't add it to my configuration file, so it won't be persistent. But one of the aliases we set up last week was up equals single quote sudo apt update double ampersand sudo apt upgrade -y, and close the single quote. And now if we just type up, it'll prompt for password because there's sudo in that line, and it will run updates. All right, and then if we look at alias again, it shows our alias of up down at the bottom with that command that we built in. Now currently this is not persistent across reboots. For that, we'd have to edit a file and add that to it. One of the other things, and this was my new discovery last week, was ls-lrt downloads. The T is for time, so sort by timestamp, and R is reverse, meaning that we're going to have the oldest on top and the newest down on the bottom. So you can also do, just LT, and it'll put the newest on top and the oldest on the bottom. Just a little bit of personal preference there, I suppose. Okay. And that very, very briefly brings us up to what we covered at the end of last week. So let me come over here and see where things are at. Looks like we're doing all right still. So we are going to move forward. And this is section 2.4, starting on page 142. The first thing that they talk about is the idea of case sensitivity. So we are going to come back here. Is it going to cooperate with me? Okay, that's working. Why is this not doing anything? All right. More than one way to skin a cat, right? All right. So, we are going to go into, well, we're in our home directory. We're going to make a new directory called demo. And one of the ideas that they hit upon in section 2.4 is that of globbing. And so we are going to do a couple of examples here. We can do touch. We're going to say demo slash question one, demo slash question 2012, demo slash question 13, and demo slash question 14. And if we do tree demo, that created all those files in one command line. One other thing that you could do here is once you've got files created, you can use the same basic command line to update the timestamp, which is another function of the touch command. So you could just run that again, and it will update update the timestamp on those items. So they're all the four files are all 1913, so 7:13 p.m. Let's see. Okay, so some other new things that we're going to jump into chapter 5. That was one of the leftover things I guess I skipped over last week. So chapter 4 in this guide that's available in the chat, and I'll try to remember to put it in the description after the live stream is over. But in chapter 4, they go into talking about how to choose a Linux-based OS. So, whether to choose a Red Hat derived OS or a Debian derived OS or something else, depending on what your needs are, whether you're running a server or a desktop system, whether you're going to use it in a corporate environment or a home environment. All things that go into the decision-making process. So then we get to chapter 5 on starting about page 351 in the guide. They talk about chsh, which is a command that will allow you to change your shell. So before we do that, if we echo our shell, we can see that we're running bash, which is your typical default in most Linux distributions. There are a few like Garuda Linux that tend to run ZSH or ZSH, humoring my viewers across the pond. But most systems are going to be running bash. Now, as far as other Unix, like true Unix systems, Mac OS does in fact run ZSH. So that is one difference you're going to have between a Linux system and a Mac system. these days. So change shell will change the default login shell for the current user. So if you wanted to change it to ZSH, you would type in bin ZSH and hit enter, and it'll change that. Then the next time you log in or open a new terminal, it will be ZSH instead of bash. I am not going to change that. I am pretty happy with bash, warts and all, but I have used it for quite a number of years. And I guess I'm a creature of habit in some regards. The next several commands are, or next three anyways, are about finding out who is or has recently been on your system. So the command last will list different users, and it will also list system boot times. It has reboot in the column and usernames for people who have logged in. So that's the last command. The who command lists people it's supposed to show who's logged in. So I'm surprised it's not showing anybody right now. Interesting. So we'll come back around to that in a moment. W. This is very interesting. It also doesn't list users. Who am I? Will tell you who you are. Not so useful these days when you have your username listed on the prompt. But at one point that command was rather useful, especially when you couldn't easily tell whether you were logged in as your normal user or your super user, your root user. So good things to know, some of it giving a little bit of historical context. But another command that's useful is the ID command. Now, you may not have an interest in Docker, but Docker is one of those popular pieces of technology these days. And in many tutorials, you are going to be asked for the user ID or UID and the group ID of the user that is setting up a particular Docker container. This comes to play in graphical front ends a lot of time, like Yacht and Portainer. So it's just something that it's good to know how to get this information. And that's what the ID command does for you. Okay. We have, if you want to switch to the root user, su space hyphen. Okay. It may be set up differently on this particular system. Oh, I know what it is. Sudo su hyphen. And then, as you can see, we're logged in as root. And then if we run the who command, you can see that I am logged in, and it doesn't actually list the root user. To log out of the root user, you can either type exit, which is the traditional way to get out of it, or the keyboard shortcut way is Control and D as in David. And on that note, let's switch over and see who might be in chat. Okay. I'm still here listening while I set up. Very good. Looks like we have 2 other people watching who aren't in chat currently. Doesn't hurt. You can hit the subscribe button. You only have to be subscribed for 5 minutes, and you can play along in chat and ask questions during the live stream. All right. So we're going to clear our screen again. And I've got a few other things I want to cover, and we're running way ahead of schedule tonight. I might have to go to a backup plan and give an early demo of something else I'm working on. Okay, so I'm going to come back to a few things I wanted to cover tonight, but some of these are bonus features. So, one of the things, or an editor that I normally use is Nano. Helps if I get back on the right screen. So if you type Nano by itself, you're going to get an editor. You've got your commands down at the bottom, Control X to exit, Control O to write out, which is equivalent to save, Control W is where is, equivalent to find, etc. Pretty easy to use once you understand the basic terminology, which is a little different than what most people are used to. But if we just enter a little bit of text, you can see up here it's got a star next to where it says new buffer. We do Control O for write out. It asks you for the name of a file. You can call it dummy.txt. You can also do Control X, and it takes us all the way out. Of course, if you're familiar with the way the command line works, you can also type nano dummy2.txt, and it will open a new file, but your file has already been named. If you type some random text in it, you can either do the standard Control O to write, Control X to exit, or you can skip a step and just do Control X. It will ask you if you want to save the modified buffer, and you can answer yes or no. We're going to say yes. We're going to use the name we gave it at the beginning, and we exit out. So Nano is pretty easy to use. A lot of beginners start with Nano before they graduate onto something else. Now, if you really want to get serious, and in some circles, not my circle, but in some circles, in order to be really taken seriously, you have to use Vim. Vim is a beast unto itself. But just for the sake of being thorough, I will open up dummy2.txt in Vim. And it's not installed. We'll do this. Okay. Now we'll go into Vim. And as you can see, you do not get any prompts on what you can do. And in fact, the down arrow key doesn't do you any good. If you type, unless you happen to hit the I key for insert, it's not going to do you any good. When you're in insert mode, you can come in and add other text and so on and so forth. To get out of insert mode, you have to hit the escape key. If you want to save the file and quit, you have to do colon, W for write, Q for quit. And it will have saved that file. And as you can see, it's got the dummy text in it. Vim is, or VI, whichever variation you use, is not for the faint of heart. I don't use it a lot, but there are a few occasions when I do use it. The key to know about this is there are some Unix variants where you're not going to have Nano and you're not going to have other easier to use editors. Not so big a deal if you're in a graphical interface on a Linux system, but if you're on or connected to a server where you only have the command line, this is something you might want to explore and find out what editor is available to you. So just a little bit of a heads up there. If we use the which command, which should tell us the location if something's installed, we could say which micro, and it appears that's not installed. We install micro just for the sake of argument, and since we've got a little time to use, micro is very similar to Nano. So you can move around with arrow keys, and you have a little bit of hinting at what it does down at the bottom, or what will get you some help. Again, not quite as easy to use as Nano necessarily, but it gives you some sort of in between Nano and Vim, you might say. Let's see. So, oh yeah, let's do this. Come back to the screen that has micro on it. One other thing, a little bonus here. I think I mentioned this before, but I may not have. If you do Control Z, generally, it will take something. We'll just run htop here. If you do Control Z, it's going to push that process to the background. And then you've got the option of typing disown -A for all, double ampersand, exit. I guess I can make this a little bit larger just for the sake of argument. And so any process attached to this terminal is going to detach itself. So it'll keep running in the background, and then the terminal is going to exit. And so we're still left with our micro here. And what is it? Alt-G is bindings. Control-G is help. Help default keys. Control E, and type quit. So there's a little bit of command entering with micro. It's not bad. I haven't used it in a while, so I'm a little rusty, but still not bad to use. Okay, so let's see. We talked a little bit briefly about the history command and how it's going to save your command history so you can go back through it later if you wish. But as you can see, my command history is getting a little bit on the long side. So what if we want to clear it? Well, you would do that by typing history-cw, and it's going to clear your history. Now if we type history again, all you have is the history command. Now, nifty thing, and this was brand new to me this week, or over the weekend, I guess I discovered this. And in 25 years, I am just finding this out now. If you type a space before a command, and then do history again, notice that ls-lah command is not in the history. So it's not a foolproof methodology to assume that people are going to be naive enough to, if an attacker gets into your system, that they're going to be naive enough to actually leave the history uncleared. And either they will put a space in front of each command, or they will use the history-cw command to clear and overwrite the history file. So, just something useful there to know. And we are going to go into our demo folder, because we're going to do a couple more globbing examples, and I want to be able to just kill this whole folder structure at the end. So if we do mkdir-p folder / curly brace sub1 comma sub2 right curly brace / left curly brace sub1 sub2 sub3 and right curly brace. That is going to create a directory structure. And do we have any guesses now that I've got a few more people in the chat? Do we have any guesses what kind of structure that's going to turn into? Well, if we do, tree, what the heck did I do here? Tree, L, say 2, folder. So this syntax created under the folder called folder. It created sub1 and sub2, and then under each of those it created sub 1, sub 2, and sub 3. But it gets even more interesting. And I'll address chat in just a moment. We could also do Micdir. Let's come back up here. We're going to say folder 2 / left curly brace 1 double dot 100 curly brace / curly brace 1 double dot 100. Oop. Oh yeah. Whoops. All right. And now, clear our screen again. If we do tree folder 2, and we are going to pipe that into less so we can see the mess we have made. So, starts off, it has created folder 1. And if you guessed that it was going to create 100 folders under each folder, you guessed correctly. So in essence, we've created 10,000 folders in the time that it took to type that one command. And this is just going to go on and on and on until we get to the bottom of it. Does the sorting in a little bit of a funky manner, but hey, it's all good. So 1, 10, 100, 11, 12 through 19, then 220 through 29, 330 through 39, etc. It's all good. Kind of fun to be able to create something that quickly. And, you know, it's a nice trick to know about. So let's go into the chat and see what we've got here, or who we've got here. We've got Catherine, welcome. We've got T Paradox Matrix. Okay, we'll come back around to your question about networking. Tony's in the house. Welcome. Terrell's here. Here with Joe, but he's tuned into but driving. Well, that's probably good. Hi, Joe. Glad to have both of you here. First two things I install on a new install is Nano and Terminator. Yes. When they're not there, at least Nano I install. Terminator, sometimes I install it, sometimes I don't. So you and Joe together? Oh no, I'm worried. Yes, that is a lot of folders, Catherine, and we can fix that problem using something that we learned last week. So if we do, for instance, ls, or let's see, tree-l, we'll say 2, we can see that went through all of our folders and subfolders, and we can get rid of that by saying rm-rf folder. And I think we had a folder 2 in there as well. And now we've just got our 4 files that we created earlier. So that gets us to the end of that little bit of fun. Okay, so jump back. T Paradox Matrix says, I've got a question regarding Linux networking. I'm confused about the types of Linux networking models. There are 3 models, I guess, right? I probably knew what they were when I was studying for various Linux classes I've taken or taught in the past. But since this was just more or less about basic commands, I did not review networking models. But we can fire up the Firefox and take a look. Linux networking models. Let's see. Are you talking T Paradox Matrix? Are you talking about peer-to-peer and client-server? Is that the type of thing you're talking about as far as networking models? Or are you talking about something else? If you want to let me know in the chat, we can try to address this either myself or as a group. For anybody that wants to chime in, I am more than willing to accept a little help along the way on this particular question. This isn't something I deal with every day, so I just want to make sure I'm on the right track in answering your question as accurately as possible. Let's see. Oh, Networking Manager is one of them, I guess. So that is not really a model. That is Network Manager is when you come up here and you come into settings and you go to network, I do believe you were dealing with Network Manager. And the idea about Network Manager in a Linux distribution with a graphical interface is simply that, here we go. This is going to give you an abstraction layer or a front end to the configuration files that actually control things. So this has progressed with the advent of Systemd, which is probably getting off topic a little bit, but I guess what you should know about this is most current Linux systems use something called Systemd to manage a lot of the processes on the system. And it does so in such a fashion that it doesn't like you to manually edit configuration files anymore. Networking is one of those where it doesn't really like you to edit by hand anymore. So, for instance, you've got the graphical version of Network Manager, which is nicely tucked into the Settings app in Ubuntu. And you've got NMCLI, which is the command line version of it. And as you can see, this is going to give you information about your network, and there are different things you can do with this to allow you to edit and do different things with it. So we did man and MCLI, which is, like it says, the command line tool for controlling network manager. It typical uses include scripts and servers. So obviously on a server, you're not going to have the graphical front end to network manager. Unless you're using something like Cockpit as your a web-based front end for a server. But there are different things that you can do with this, and it all really boils down to reading through the documentation. Now, just for the sake of argument, let's clear the screen. In the old days, you used to be able to just edit, and we'll just do cat, that Etsy networking, is it networking? It's been so long, I don't even remember where the file is off the top of my head. So you used to edit the interfaces file. So let's see. Network configuration files in Linux explained. So I'll throw this in chat. It might be a good reference or a place for you to start doing a little reading. So if we jump back to, that's not what I want to do. There we go. System D, and yeah, there's networkd.conf is going to have some of your information in here, and it tells you right at the top, this file is part of System D. And whenever you see that sort of almost a warning, it's kind of cluing you in not to edit it by hand. Let's see if... And Catherine brings up a good point. It does, in fact, differ from distro to distro. Although most distros these days are using System D, not all of them. And this is where, depending on what system you're using, you need to consult the proper documentation. And that's, I stated at the beginning of these, of the series of these videos on Linux commands, that we were going to be using Ubuntu. So that is what we've been doing. Now, I may at some point later on run a similar series where we use either Fedora, Rocky, or Elma Linux, which are all going to be sort of in that Red Hat family, and then we could see some of the differences. But for this series, we're focusing on Ubuntu because I have sort of lived in the Debian-derived Linux distribution space probably since about 2006 or 7. And I don't know. Having got my early start in Red Hat, Once I made the transition, maybe it was just when I made the transition, but to me at the time, I found this to be an easier system to use, and I've just kind of stuck with it over the years. I know that was a bunch of information I threw at you, but if that didn't answer your question, if you want to rephrase it, or give me a little more context, then, maybe we can figure out a better answer for you. All right, let me jump back to my notes because I do have a few things, a few other things to cover. And let's go back here. Okay. So there are some access control files that you should be at least loosely familiar with if you're going to be the administrator of a Linux system. We're not going to edit these, but we're going to just view them and look through the contents a little bit. So the first one, and I think we may have looked at this before, is the password file. And this doesn't actually have any passwords in it. Traditionally, years and years ago, once upon a time in a galaxy far, far away, or once upon a time on a Unix system far, far in the past, the passwords were actually stored in this file in plain text. Not a terribly good idea, security-wise, right? So where these X's are in the file is a placeholder for the password. That's where it would have been in older Linux or Unix systems at one point in time. So that's one. The group file at etc/group will list the different groups that are on the system. Many of these being built-in groups, although you can add your own as you use the system. So there are old things like floppy and tape that are on here, news and mail, which don't get used all that much anymore, and LP for printing, stood for line printer back in the day, when they were using either like a daisy wheel type printer or a dot matrix type printer hooked up to a machine. And there are other things. There's various systemd directories or groups, excuse me. Things for Bluetooth, things for SSL certificates, etc., etc. So that's a good one to know about. And if we do, I did that sort of on purpose. So if we do sudo bang bang, it will run the previous command with sudo. And this is the shadow file, which would typically hold hashed passwords for users that you add to the system. There's also gshadow, which is going to have different things in it. I've never really used the GShadow file. It's just something that happens in the background. We've got, let's see, sudoers. So people on the system that have sudo privileges. And you can lock this down. So for instance, if you wanted to give somebody access to just a single command that they could run as administrator, you could do that as part of the configuration in this file. So just, again, another file to be aware of. And then there is sudoers.d, which is a directory. I should have remembered that. Let's see, just ls. And there's just a readme in here. And that gives you information about the sudoers file and different things that you need to know there. Important being the visudo command being the recommended way to update sudoers content. Although they say this, there is a way on the command line to do that without having to edit manually the file. So, for instance, let's take things a step further. We're doing all right time-wise. We've got about 32 minutes left. So why don't we add a user? And this actually brings another point up. There are two commands that you can use to add users. There's add user, and there's user add. Now, typically, most, but not all, most Linux systems, you're going to want to use add user and then specify the user's name. And I'm just doing Tom because it's short. And when you go to add Tom, it's going to add the group Tom, add the user Tom, create his home directory, copy the files from the skeleton directory, and then ask you for Tom's password. Oh, and I got a bad password. Okay, so even though it doesn't like the password, it let me continue with it. We'll give Tom's full name, his room number, his work phone, his home phone, and anything for other. We can leave it blank, just hitting enter and say yes for that. Now, if I can remember the full command off the top of my head. Let's see, sudo user mod. So we're going to modify a user dash a capital G, add to group. sudoers. Actually, I think it's sudo Tom. Okay, and so now Tom is part of the sudoers group. And if we logged in as Tom, which we can do here momentarily, do this, and we are going to log out, and then we'll come back here and we'll do Tom, and say continue. And we get to the graphical desktop. It's a new user, so it's going to present us with the wizard. We can just skip. We're going to skip. We're not going to send system info. I'm basically skipping through everything, and we are logged in as Tom. So, who am I? I am Tom. And then if we do who, W is going to give us nothing. I'm still not entirely sure why. But last will tell us. Scroll up. System reboot. This is March 9th, so we got the newest at the bottom, maybe. Okay. Still running. Okay. We should have Tom listed on there somewhere. And I don't see him. Interesting. Anyway, I'm not going to worry too much about that right now. Something I'll have to investigate a little bit. But regardless, we can do a few things here. If we type sudo apt update, password for Tom, and it's going to run through and check for updates. And since the beginning of the stream, we've got 4 more packages that can be upgraded. This demonstration was just to prove that Tom is in fact a member of the sudo group, and things are working as expected. So, let me think. Oh, I know. So, couple other fun things that you can do. Let's see if Cowsay is not installed, SL is not installed. Okay, message of the day, fortune. Okay, so let's install a few things here. These aren't that useful, but they're kind of fun. We are going to do sudo apt install Cowsay, SL, fortune, CMatrix, and Hollywood. Okay. So we can do, clear our screen. If we do Cowsay, Joe, I want my JAU. It's going to put a cow on the screen and say, Joe, I want my JAU. And we've been live for over an hour, so I feel entitled. Let's see. So you could also do things like fortune. which we installed just a minute ago, and take the output from Fortune and pipe it to Kausei. Be security conscious. National defense is at stake. So Fortune by itself. You will be imprisoned for contributing your time and skill as to a bank robbery. Some of them are kind of fun. Some of them are let's see. Steam locomotive. You get a steam locomotive moving across your terminal screen. Again, not the most useful thing. And if you really want to get people to leave you alone or scare them a little bit, Hollywood makes your terminal look like one of those hacking scenes from TV and movies. So, and to exit out of this, you do Control C until you get back to the prompt, and then you have to do Control D to get back to your normal shell. So I think, two other things I wanted to cover tonight. Sudo less etc skel. Oops. ls etc skel. Okay, so we got nothing in there right now. Let's see. Sudo. Oh, maybe we better try this just to be thorough. Let's see. Sudo less etc default user add. So this is one of those configuration files where you can set up things so that when you create new users, they're going to inherit certain settings. So all the new users are going to be basically the same to start off, and then once the users have their accounts, they can customize things to some degree afterwards. But it tells you some interesting things in here. Again, not necessarily a file you're going to edit manually in most cases, at least as home users. But if you're running multiple Linux systems in a company, then this might be something you'll do. So I at least wanted to throw that out there just for the sake of being thorough. Ooh, excuse me. Okay. Let me see where we left off. I just realized part of my stream isn't going to work. Hate it when that happens. I call that the curse of the live demo. I don't normally realize it until I'm eyeballs deep in the demo and something doesn't work. So, Kausei, yes. Like I said, it's not terribly useful, but some people, some administrators will, with a sense of humor, will have Fortune installed on the system, and they will have, when you first log into a terminal, they'll have Kausei come up and with one of the Fortunes, yeah. So, but it's a fun command, so I like to throw a few fun things in. Joe said to award you a JAU. Well, good. Let's see. Actually, he's feeling generous, so make that 1.06. All right. Um, I wish there was a Jurassic Park screensaver app. Yeah, not one that I'm aware of. Um, yes, Etsy is abbreviation for etc. We techie people just shorten that to Etsy. Typically, or a lot of people I've been around do that. So I kind of bounce between them. Uh, let's see. We needed to reset password every 60 days at work. Yeah. Um, there. What was it? Was it NIST? I think it might have been NIST that came out with guidance that they no longer recommend that. But you know, your mileage may vary. I have not had a chance to try Crater Invoices yet, but that is on my list. So that brings us current with the chat. So I wanted to give everybody. Let me take that off screen for a minute so I can prep something. I wanted to give everybody a little bit of a sneak peek. I discovered this yesterday during the live stream. So let me see if I find the right window, and I'll show you something that I set up for testing. And there it is. Bring the screen back up, and just for fun, I'll put myself in the corner because that's not covering up anything important. So Fog has finally, after like 2.5 years, maybe a little more, they finally released a new version of Fog, where, you know, for at least the last year and a half, they've been recommending that you run the development version, which makes people running a production environment a little bit nervous in many cases. So I spun up a fresh Ubuntu server, ran through the install, and it's just as easy as it's always been. And I did, in fact, list all images. I did, in fact, capture 2 images to this machine. And if I play my cards right, maybe I can show, I think that's on this server, I can show that process a little bit. I think it was this one. If we start, we hit escape for menu, hit 1 to boot over the network. And it, no, let's see. So we get to our boot menu, and I messed up. Trying to make Jay feel less bad about his demo not working. Just happened this way. So thing you need to do is you go to the tasks, list all hosts, and then you select the machine that you want to capture an image for, and you click capture, and that sets up a task. Now, did it prematurely before. Now I can jump over here and boot from the network. And we wait just a minute or two, and it should pop up our menu again. Notice that it's using XZ for compression here. We've a command that we've talked about. So it's actually automatically starting the capture process. So it's going to capture an image of this VM over the network. And I think this one takes about 2 minutes to do. It's for a lot of my personal needs these days, I am using RescueZilla more than I'm using Fog. Fog is useful, and what I used it for at one of my previous employers, when I was teaching IT classes, we had an agreement, I suppose you could say, between the IT instructors and the IT manager. And so we had the control to run something like this in the classroom and be able to image the computers, the classroom computers, to, whatever we were working on to a degree. And we, myself and this last group of students I had, we did this enough. We were at the time testing out Fog, but we did this enough that when the school got some new laptops, they actually, instead of having the company they bought the laptops from image them all, they had us do it as a classroom project. So it was kind of interesting. It was good experience for the students so that they could at least understand the process of imaging a little bit more. And it saved the company some money. So I guess that's probably where the IT manager was coming down at. So yeah, I will be doing in probably later this week or next week, at some point I'll be doing a full up-to-date install, configuration, and the whole shebang when it comes to Fog. I may try to do a Windows sysprep and capture and deploy to a new VM. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm still looking into some details. But just wanted to give a little bit of a preview. I know some of you have seen my Fog videos before, but this is just a very, very basic install. And yeah, it's pretty easy to use once you understand the basics of the way it's set up, and have done it a couple times. It's I'm very happy to see that they finally got a new version out. Hopefully this won't be the only version they put out this year, and they will have, they will not wait another 2.5 years before releasing the next version. But that's, sometimes that's the way it happens with open source. So, all right, TBJ is looking forward to the Fog video and also the server video. Yes, I have not forgotten about that one. I'm not sure it's going to come out tomorrow. It might be Thursday. depending on what I can squeeze in recording tonight. But that is on the list. That is definitely on the list. So that's, I guess that's going to about wrap things up for the evening. T Paradox Matrix, does Fog allow machines to boot an OS over the network without installing the OS to the client's hard drive? You can do that. That's not one of the things that I have done with it. But now that they've got an updated version out, that's one of the things that I've wanted to do. So basically, how that comes into play. Come back here again, and if we just boot this from the network. So basically, the options that you've got here, so we could run memtest 86. So this is effectively booting a DOS-based utility over the network. So there are configuration files where you can add to that list that you saw a moment ago to select from. So if you wanted to boot, like, for instance, a live Linux ISO, you could potentially do that. But yeah, the long answer is yes, you can, and it takes some work. No, I've not done it. I've read enough about it to know it's possible. The documentation has been quite outdated on that particular configuration file and set of instructions for a while now. So it's something I'm going to have to look at again and see if I can work through it. So you can do it, but I have not done it yet. So we'll just stop that machine. Looking forward to the Arctic video. Yep, I've still got to do that one. My issue resolved itself. Apparently I didn't wait for the process to happen. Oh, bonus. All right. Well, I think that covers everything for tonight. We got a little bonus, a little preview of what's to come with Fog. I'm hoping to set that up in a series, so I might kind of batch record those and then, release them over a period of time. But that's something I've been waiting for a while now. Like I said, it's been 2.5 years since the previous release, and man, it's one of the top performing topics on my channel. So I've very much been waiting for that to come back around and get updated so I can make some new videos on it. So on that note, I am going to thank you all for being here. I appreciate the support. It's kind of a crazy month doing this daily content challenge thing, but I will persevere. If you haven't already, go down below the video and give me a thumbs up. Gives me a little bit of encouragement as I go along, especially this month. I can use all the encouragement people are willing to give me. And, if you have a friend or colleague that might benefit from some of the content on my channel, pass the video link along. Let them know. Share it on social media. Again, anything we can do to get the word out. there are great things coming going through the rest of this year, and we're just really getting started. So, at last check, we were at, we were at 4,340 or 4,416 subscribers now. So, a little bit of an uptick this month so far. View time may not be doing quite so well, but it is higher than normal by a little bit. So I'm thankful for all the support everybody has continued to give. So thank you for that, TVJ, and Tony as well. I think things are getting better, and just going to keep on pushing forward. So on that note, we've got 33 minutes between the time I hit end broadcast and the time TVJ starts his broadcast. So do what you need to do in that time. I'm going to go find some food. So I'll see you in the chat on the TVJ live stream. Talk to you all later. Have a good night.